You know, well, you look a little tired. Why don't you come and lay down and I'll rub your feet for a little while?
Oh, thanks, baby.
That does it. I'm getting me a white man. Now, come on, you know you all were thinking it.
But we got into an argument. He was like, it seems like you want me to leave. I want to respect your space, so I'm going to go. But you call me and you let me know when you're ready for me to come back. And I was like, you should go. Leave. Get out. And the second the door closed, I lost my mind. I was crying. I threw my phone into the wall. I was like, I had a full-on like break.
You were triggered by him threatening to leave.
Flashback.
He was like, it seems like you want me to leave. I want to respect your space, so I'm going to go. But you call me and you let me know when you're ready for me to come back.
End of flashback.
You were triggered by him threatening to leave.
And I find that with therapy, one of the biggest things that I've learned is how to stop the spiral.
Yes.
At least just like a little bit faster than you have before.
About 30% of anything that we're injured by, we can only heal in the context of a loving, secure relationship.
Yeah.
And those are the things that they don't get triggered until we are with the person that we care about the most.
Oh, yeah.
I think this exchange here is pretty normal for what we see quite often in social media these days. You hear the story of the woman saying essentially that the guy she's with was very careful in saying the way he was going to leave. And then when the therapist turns it around, she says you were threatened and triggered by him saying he was going to leave or threatening to leave. And that turns that very mild story that she was saying about how he left into him essentially attacking her by leaving in the manner that he did, instead of addressing the fact that maybe the real issue is that she has some kind of separation anxiety, or she, I don't know, dealing with something that may not have had anything to do with that guy leaving. But when you watch this interview, essentially what it turns into is the guy is the villain, instead of telling that young lady the truth, which whatever that truth might be is. And so that's where you have the problem with this environment that tells so many people, and by people in this case, I think it's young ladies, what they want to hear without telling them the truth. And when they bump into reality, it hurts.
I have never felt so big, fat, and black. Did I ever tell you how I hated Japan?
No, I've never heard of anybody saying they hate Japan.
Hello. It's me. I hated it. I hated it the whole time.
A lot of my listeners are Black women. What's one thing that you feel like is most urgent for us to focus our attention and efforts on right now?
For Black women to focus their attention on themselves, you know what I'm saying, on uplifting themselves, for sure. Black women are the birth of mankind, most oppressed group in America at the same time. Also one of the most educated.
Yeah.
So it's like Black women, I feel, catch a lot of hatred strictly for focusing on themselves. Yo, Black women are too educated, too powerful, too brilliant, you know, and it's like it gets under people's skin for Black women to claim sovereignty.
I wanted to go home the whole time.
Was it just too different?
It was like I have never felt so big, fat, and black in my entire life. I got kicked off of a ride at Universal Studios.
Okay.
Even though the ride closed, it clicked 3 times. And if the clicky clicks down 3 times, you're in there.
Yeah.
You're safe. Yeah. You're good. And they were like, no, sorry. Get your big fat black ass off of here.
And speaking of self-care, first of all, I gotta say the body is looking so good.
Thank you.
You have been so transparent with like your weight loss journey. But what is some advice you have for the girlies that are just trying to like get it together, focus on their body, and just like their self-care overall?
So I wouldn't say I was on a weight loss journey. I was on a mental health journey. I got in the gym to fix my mind, get my mind right. It was never about losing weight, because not for nothing, thin or slim, la belladonna always been conceited. Hello.
I've just never felt so American.
Yes. Yeah.
And I did not enjoy that feeling.
What do you do? What type of work you do?
I don't do. I'm literally don't do.
No.
I'm a basic. And basic just have fun.
Yeah. So how you pay your bills? Like
a nigga trick.
You know, with my wife, you know, who Tina decided to go her own way. That's why you don't see her right here. But she want to go do something else. That's fine with me. We had our run.
That lady didn't just up and go. That lady didn't just up and leave after 30 years. Okay, don't do that. Don't do that. That lady left after 30 years for a damn good reason. Okay. Trust and believe. A woman her age is not happy about having to start over after 30 years. A woman her age is sick and tired and was like, I'm on the last leg of my life and I'm not finna continue living like this. Like, come on, Lavar Ball. If you're going to tell it all. But
I keep seeing videos of guys on her crashing out because Lavar Ball's wife left him. They cannot understand why after 30 years of marriage and he's such a great father, why she would have left. But all the women know. First of all, Lavar Ball is insufferable. He's insufferable. His ego, how he talks, you could just tell that he has made this woman's life a living hell. All the women understand completely why after 30 years you would be like, I'm cutting my losses and getting the fuck up out of here. I raised the kids. I did all the things. We got them all where we need to go. I'm leaving.
An interesting thing has happened in this modern social media landscape where what used to be what we saw on television has basically become what all of us are seeing on social media. We're not seeing the real in social media. We're seeing what people are presenting to us in social media. The difference between an episode of Fresh Prince where they're showing a very happy black woman married to a white man who is willing to change the baby, rub her feet while she relaxes, and everyone on the episode is jealous and say that they want a white man as well, it's good for television because in a way we know that that's a form of fiction that's emulating a small population of real life. But what happens when the woman who 20, 30 years ago said, darn, I wish I can get me a white man, goes on the internet and says, I had relationships with 63 men. I did not have any complications. I don't talk about the difficulties, either physically or emotionally, the heartbreak. She didn't talk about any of that. She talked about how awesome it was. And to any young lady listening to that, it seems like, hey, you know what? If I do the same thing, I'll get the same results. And of course, what's missing from all of it is proper journalism. And why? Because proper journalism will ask questions that you don't want to answer. It will confront truths that you don't want to confront. And in the end, is not worried about your feelings. It's worried about the truth.
Mr. President, you have been very supportive of black colleges. You've issued an executive order. You recommended a $9.3 million increase in the budget, higher education budget for these schools. There are people in this country, however, who believe, seriously believe, black and white, that black people cannot learn unless they're with white people.
Yeah, I think that was described best by the black state superintendent of education of the state of California, my good friend Wilson Riles, when he said this idea that a black child can't learn unless they're sitting between two white kids is demeaning and humiliating, and I think he's absolutely right. The black colleges, I know it sounds inconsistent. We should be saying, well, if we're talking about non-segregation in the other colleges and universities, why should we be specifically helping these? Well, in the first place, the black colleges do not restrict. White students are permitted to enter there if they want, but they are predominantly black. But there is a very rich heritage. There is a symbolism in them, and the contribution that they have made, not only to the blacks who've graduated, but to the whole of society, the people that have come out of them. I think it is well worthwhile in our government helping those colleges.
General Daniel Chappie James, a Tuskegee graduate and member of the 477th Bombardment Group, was the first black to receive the rank of four-star general in military history. Years later, he would reflect on his Tuskegee training.
Now, it was in 1943 that I completed flight training at Tuskegee Institute, Alabama. We've come a long way since then. In the early days at Tuskegee, in addition to the already difficult job of flying, we trained under the additional pressures of segregation, but we had no time for self-pity or despair. We were too busy preparing ourselves for a career of service to our nation. The state of our fully integrated Air Force today is a pretty good indication that we did a good job. But that doesn't mean that the future will be a rose garden, or that there will not be other obstacles to overcome. Freedom must be repurchased by every new generation.
So I think that we need to get out of that mold of being a black leader and opt for the whole piece of the pie because it's out there. the main key to success therein is preparation in a given discipline, or the versatility to be able to be a master or well-informed over a certain field of disciplines. So they have more, find it more and more difficult to say, I wanted one, but I can't find one, it's qualified. I wanted one, but I can't find one, it's qualified. Unfortunately, too often today that's true, because the people that are qualified and that are ready, they'll find that those doors are open. Another quote from my mother, she said, don't stand there banging on that door of opportunity, yelling, let me in, let me in, let me in, and all of a sudden somebody snatches open the door and you say, wait a minute, I got to go get my bags. She said, you stand there armed with your bags of knowledge, your bags of understanding, and your bags of desire, and when they crack that door, step in and take charge. Well, you can do that now.
A new book is shaking the very foundations of thought on the causes of poverty and underachievement. It strikes home particularly hard in America, where group ethnic and racial identity are strong. In The Economics and Politics of Race, Dr. Thomas Sowell says that Chinese, Jews, and Japanese are overachievers, and blacks, Puerto Ricans, and Mexicans are underachievers. And it's all due to culture. I'm Tony Brown. In a moment, the ethnic flaw. The Economics and Politics of Race. Dr. Sowell, you have written what I consider to be one of the most exhaustive statements I have ever seen on an awfully complex subject. I'm really not sure that I understand it that thoroughly, so let me begin by trying to get some general understanding. Are you saying that in a culturally pluralistic society such as America, are you saying that the variable in success or lack of success is the culture of the particular group?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying it not only for the United States, but in terms of the studies of various other countries around the world, the same thing seems to be true. You not only find the same group having the same characteristics in country after the country. That is, the Germans produced the first pianos in Australia. They created the piano industry in the United States. They built the first pianos in England. They built the first pianos in Russia. You look at the Chinese, what they major in Malaysia in college is what they major in the United States in college.
Namely science and
science and technology, heavily. And this follows the group around the world. So the notion that the group is a creature of society, that society has shaped the group, just will not stand up to the facts.
I often talk on this channel about the nostalgia that many of us have for the 80s and 90s, and one key piece of that nostalgia was public television. I can remember on Saturday afternoons sitting down with my family and watching a wide variety of programming, cooking shows. We can't forget Justin Wilson and his amazing tagline,
I ain't gonna bet with you if you're gonna start diving after him, I'll guarantee you.
One of my most fond memories of the 80s and 90s was watching Tony's Brown Journal as a family. It was often that he would have people on his panels or on his interviews that many of us didn't agree with in the black community. And his conversations were not only thought-provoking, but he pushed the boundaries as a journalist for what black people would have deemed acceptable. Interviewing President Reagan, interviewing Thomas Sowell, interviewing a wide variety of people that brought thoughts to the black space that maybe we couldn't agree with, but it's not our job for him to agree with us. It was his job to bring those ideas to us to spark the conversation. And he did that masterfully.
You say that culture is the variable in success, which means conversely, culture is the variable in failure. And you cite the phenomenal achievement of West Indians, which is the largest black immigrant group in the United States. Yes. Their phenomenal success in the United States, I think they earn about, second generation earns about 15% more
than the average American.
Than the average American. But they don't do well in their own native countries, and they don't do well in England. Now, if culture is the variable, why is that a fact?
I guess you'd have a selective migration coming into this. That's also true of other groups, by the way. The Chinese are prosperous everywhere in the world except China. The Indians are prosperous throughout Africa, but they are in terrible shape in India. They are prosperous in Malaysia. They're prosperous in other parts of Burma at one time. There are many groups which, when freed from the constraints of their particular society, burst forth with all the other abilities that they have. In their own homes, they're throttled by various other factors.
Thomas Sowell will forever be a lightning rod in the black community for a variety of reasons. One of them, of course, is that he says things that other cultures can latch on to and point at the black community and say, hey, if you guys would just do what he says, you guys would be okay. Of course, that neglects the extremely complex history of black people in America being a created people, people that were bred for money, and then going from Negro to Afro-American to black to African-American to colored. The variety of words itself shows how complex our history is. And so to try and gloss over that with very simple solutions doesn't really work when you're talking about other people coming from other cultures where their teachers are writing curriculums that look like them from their own country, when we come from a country where our curriculum is written by people that don't look like us. Of course, that's not an excuse for not succeeding, but the point of all of that is that having that conversation is important. Not just a conversation of you need to think like us because it feels good, but the conversation that this is all complex, put ideas on the table and let's make a go of it. Instead of essentially coddling people's feelings, which is what journalism has turned into today.
And you've also talked about how more women are identifying as bisexual.
Yeah, I mean, we're designing for next generation audiences. So within the LGBTQIA plus umbrella, the largest growth is coming from the B in bisexual, and it's largely young women who may or may not have been in an intimate romantic relationship, but this is a sense of identity. And so we're also building for, the developing identity as you go through a dating app and a relationship experience. You're both building a relationship with someone else. You're also growing and changing as a person. And so that identity sort of unfolding is something that we're building for as well.
If you guys know me, you know that I really don't care about what people are doing with whom in what combination or what gender. I really don't care about people's private lives. It's just not something I really care about. I think even celebrating Pride Month, I think after a couple of decades of it, I think the point has already been made. If people want to do that, more power to you. I'd rather us have a high-speed rail month or a climate change month or something, but if we're going to keep talking about it, fine, it is what it is. But you can see that this interview is really not hitting on anything very substantial, except that more and more young ladies are basically boundless in their relationships, and they're going to be with any person that they deem fitting for that particular time, and they're using apps to do so. So aside from the fact that the normal talking point that there aren't enough good men for these women to date, so they have to open up their dating pool, they're not going to really speak on anything like the society has evolved to a point where there really aren't any limits for what young ladies are doing with themselves and what are the ramifications for this down the road. It's just young ladies are making more decisions in terms of freedom of what they do with themselves and their bodies, and we're here to profit off of it. The hard-hitting questions are absent.
And I wouldn't want to stigmatize groups as permanently underachievers. If you look at generation by generation, you find incredible changes. The black population especially. The change in occupations of blacks between the 1920s and the 1950s is just phenomenal. So that what we're watching are people who, for cultural reasons and historical reasons, begin behind a certain level and have not closed the gap. It's like a relay race. You don't say that the runner is a bad runner because he hasn't closed the gap when he started 50 yards behind. If he's 40 yards behind now, we don't call him a failure. We say he's made up 10 yards.
Well, I'm sure you do know the conventional wisdom in America is that every immigrant group to this country, with the exception of blacks, has closed the gap.
That's not really true. It depends upon what time frame you're talking about and how you define the groups. The Chinese who've come here from Hong Kong and other parts of China since the Second World War are in dire poverty in many parts of Chinatowns of New York, of San Francisco, Los Angeles, in many cases far worse off than the average black. So that isn't true that every group has done this. Blacks started much further behind. I don't think people realize how much further behind blacks started and how much progress has been made. There's a distinguished economic historian, Robert Higgs, who has said that for blacks to go from being completely illiterate in the middle of the 19th century to being one-half literate. And by 1900 is just an amazing achievement in the history of the world, that you very seldom find that kind of change that quickly. So it depends on what you're holding as your standard.
The standard is that blacks haven't caught up with whites.
What whites haven't stood still.
You make another point in terms of intra-black relations, and that is, you say affirmative action for the most part has really benefited blacks who really didn't need affirmative action.
Affirmative action is a great way for black PhDs to get endowed chairs. It's a terrible way for some kid in the South Bronx to try to get his first job. What affirmative action does is create an incentive for people to hire those who have a proven track record, those who have degrees and things like that. It makes it more dangerous for the employer to hire an untrained person with no track record, because if he has to fire that person, then he's letting himself in for legal trouble.
In this modern world of social media, we've grown so used to regular people picking up microphones and pretending they're journalists, pretending that they are MCs, that they are neutral when they have an agenda. And when you see so often social media have people that are moderators that clearly have an agenda that they're trying to direct you towards, when they meet someone that is against their agenda, it's often hostile. Now, you can't tell me that Tony Brown agrees 100% with the ideas of Tom and Soul. But is this interview contentious at all? It is not. And that is because Tony Brown participated in the lost art of journalism, something that is disappearing at a rapid rate as we look at this modern world around us. We have many people on social media pretending to be journalists, pretending to be people that don't have an agenda, but they have a certain slant. And I guess at times I may even be guilty of it. But at certain times, it is my full intent to show a particular point of view and have a discussion about it. Something that I believe is getting more and more difficult to do in a time where it's easy to see someone break up with his wife and essentially say he's been a terrible person for 30 years, not addressing the fact that he's been there for 30 years, or for a young lady to go to Japan and no one tell her that the average size of someone in Japan is 125, 130 pounds maybe. And if you're going there at 200, 220, 230 pounds or whatever she is, then you're going to run into difficulties. That is just people essentially not telling those people the facts on the ground. Salute to Tony Brown and the people that are trying to have an even slant on this world that we're dealing with now, because what we're seeing now is that the art of impartiality is a dying one. And surely we could use more of that in the world we're seeing around us. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. Catch you next video. Take care, guys.